You're listening to the NFPT podcast, where we help aspiring trainers pass their exams and launch their fitness careers. I'm Erin Mahoney, and today we're going to do a sample question on principles of program design. Program design is a sizable chunk of your CPT exam, but it really doesn't have to be difficult. In fact, most trainers know these principles intuitively, but then they tend to freeze up when trying to answer questions like these on the exam. So, I'm going to give you an example of how the question could be worded, and then I'll provide sample answer options to choose from. And then we'll walk through how you can select the best answer and crush the exam. All right, let's get started. I'll read the question, the answer options, and then we'll break it down. Here's the question. Performing box jumps to improve power and performance for a vertical jump is an example of what program design principle? Is it A, periodization, B, individualization, C, progression, or D, specificity? All right, I'm going to read it again. Performing box jumps to improve power and performance for a vertical jump is an example of what program design principle? Is it A, periodization, B, individualization, C, progression, or D, specificity? Let's break it down. Just by the words alone, you might feel like any of them could be correct. But let's start with the most obvious wrong answer, which is A, periodization. If you're looking just at the word periodization and how it relates to the question, there isn't any obvious link there, so that helps you rule it out. The word period in periodization can be used to consider a period of time. So, periodization in program design is all about organizing training into distinct blocks or phases, thus, the word period. So, it doesn't relate to the exercise in one workout to achieve one outcome. Then we've got individualization. Now, this one does have the potential to throw you off because you might think of individualization as you would think of like a custom built workout. But individualization in program design is more about how each unique person responds to exercise differently. So, this one isn't the correct answer either. Now, let's move on to option C, which is progression. Now, if the question were asking about increasing the box height over time or increasing any part of it over time, then progression would be suitable. Progression in program design is about forcing the body to adapt based on a demand that you give it. The demand has to be greater than what the body can currently do. So, even though progression is a very important part of program design, it's not the correct answer. And then that leaves us with D, specificity. And at this point, by process of elimination, you know what's the correct answer. And the word alone, specificity, has specific as part of the root. The question is giving us a specific exercise to do in order to achieve a specific goal. Therefore, specificity is definitely the right choice. Now, here's a quick note on the specificity principle. Sometimes it's also referred to as the SAID principle. That's SAID. And the SAID principle is an acronym that stands for Specific Adaptations to Impose Demands. And sometimes those words can be used interchangeably. So you might see it read as the SAID principle or the specificity principle. And the term, either way, clearly spells out for you what it is and how it applies to the question. Now, when it comes to the SAID principle or the principle of specificity, there's three types that you want to know about. First, there's mechanical specificity. Then there's neuromuscular specificity. And lastly, we have metabolic specificity. Let's take a look at what each one of those are so you would be able to easily identify an example of them. For mechanical specificity, that's all about the weight or resistance. So, how much intensity, how much weight are you lifting? And or it's also about the movement or biomechanics similarity. So, for example, if I'm trying to increase my vertical jump, mechanical specificity would say that we should be doing something like barbell squats. Then we've got neuromuscular specificity. And as the name implies, this is specifically relating to the nervous system and the muscular system working together. So sometimes it's about the speed of contraction. So, how quickly can the nervous system communicate to the muscular system in order to perform the desired contraction? It also can refer to intermuscular coordination. Now, you don't need to know that definition, but intermuscular coordination is kind of like things for balance. So, for example, how is the nervous system able to make sure the right muscles are recruited at the right time in order to make sure that you maintain balance and don't fall over? And then lastly, there's metabolic specificity. And this is all about the energy demands or the energy systems that the body is using. And so in this instance, we're referring to, are you training for a marathon or are you training for sprinting? And regardless, you want to be training accordingly. All right, as we conclude this episode on program design, remember that you need to know more than just the specificity principle. Make sure that you also know the overload principle, the FIT principle, FITT, that relates more to cardio, the individuality principle, progression, and reversibility, which is use it or lose it. You'll want to know the definitions of each one of these, but don't overthink it. You really shouldn't have to memorize too much because the words and the terms relate exactly to what the definition implies. And I'm sure a lot of this to you is already in your knowledge base from what you've experienced with fitness. So, as you continue to prepare for test day, also make sure that you know each one of these principles of program design in application. All right, that is it for today in our example walkthrough of a program design question. Remember to keep progress, not perfection, front of mind for you as you prepare for the exam. And as always, if how we explain things makes sense and you want it all to click, then it's time for you to check out NFPT's CPT packages or our recorded exam prep series, which applies to any CPT you might be enrolled in. And if you're already an NFPT student, well, you're in great hands, and I can't wait to hear that you passed. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get more test prep, sample questions, and tips on being a successful trainer. Thanks for joining. Be well, and let's make you a trainer. Today's episode is brought to you by Summit Professional Education. Unlock your potential with Summit Professional Education, your trusted partner for expert-led courses, flexible learning, and essential CEUs. Elevate your skills today at summiteducation.com.